Welcome back to Six Sad Lit, the podcast where literature gets messy, personal, and just a little unhinged. I'm your host, Jen Eastwood, and today I'm joined by the razor-sharp and relentlessly funny Anna Dorn, an American author and editor known for her satirical, culturally plugged-in novels that tackle everything from fame to morality to the general housecape of modern life. Anna is the author of Vagabond, Exalted, Bad Lawyer, and most recently, Perfume and Pain, a biting, brainy exploration of desire, identity, and justice, wrapped in humor and social commentary. In our conversation, Anna opens up about her unconventional journey from the courtroom to the writer's room and how her background in law shapes the ethical questions that pulse through her fiction. We dig into cancel culture, character development, and the unappreciated importance of author merch. We also talk about what it takes to write unlikable women, how rituals fuel creativity, and why music and pop culture are central to Anna's next book. You're not going to want to miss it. Anna, thank you so much for joining me. I am so looking forward to chatting with you. Would you mind just introducing yourself briefly and giving listeners a little bit of an overview of your work?
Sure. Thank you so much for having me. First off, my name is Anna Dorn. I'm an author. I live in Los Angeles, and I've published 4 books, I think. I'm like starting to lose track, but yeah, I think so. And I have a 5th coming out. My most recent was called Perfume and Pain, and my next one coming out is called American Spirits, which I just got a pub date for. It comes out April 26th, 2016. Yeah.
Oh my God, that's so exciting.
Mm.
That's so exciting. So you used to be a lawyer before you switched careers. I guess maybe switch is not the right word, but before you went all in on writing. What was the catalyst that led to that massive change? And also big ups, because I also had a complete different career change as well in my 20s. So I am always interested to hear how people make that happen.
What was your career change? Just curious.
I was a hairdresser for like 8 years, and now I work in advertising and I specialize in social media. So yeah, I went from being on my feet all day to sitting at a desk.
That is quite different. Yeah, I've thought about that with being a hairdresser, having to be on your feet all day must be really tough. So I always wanted to be a writer. I never really wanted to be a lawyer. I just kind of went because my parents really encouraged me to go, and I sort of just wanted to buy time. Like, I didn't want to get like a regular job, and I had this parental sort of pressure, encouragement to go to law school, and people were sort of like, you can do anything with a law degree, which I don't think is really true, but I just went, and I sort of I always knew that law was not going to be like the end goal for me, like writing was. And pretty much once I got my first like actual law job after law school, I was like, I gotta get out. I can't do this for the rest of my life. So I started really taking writing seriously and taking serious moves to transition to writing full time.
That is amazing. I know you've written a memoir about your experience as a lawyer. Does that career experience still influence your work, or how do you think it sort of comes through in your work today?
Well, yeah, I don't regret going to law school, or I think it was helpful in a lot of ways in my time as a lawyer. I mean, law school is very writing intensive, as is being a lawyer, and especially the type of law I was doing. I was doing appeals, which is, I basically just wrote briefs. I didn't interact with clients. I just wrote essentially just long papers, books for the court, telling them that my client, deserves another trial, or that their conviction should be overturned. It's been so long since I've done law that I have kind of forgotten the language, so it's like hard to remember. But appeal, conviction, okay, got it. And so it's very writing intensive, and the writing is different, but criminal law does have a lot of human drama. And then there's the statement of facts section of the brief, which is supposed to be very persuasive. It's a sort of like persuasive retelling of what happened. If you read the prosecutor's statement of facts and you read the defense attorney's statement of facts, you'll think it's describing a completely different situation, because you basically each one is trying to make the facts seem like, your client didn't actually do anything wrong. So that's sort of like a persuasive storytelling element of the law that I was doing. I think the other way it's really helped, I can think of 2 other ways. One is that there's a ton of reading in law school, and I became really good at skimming. So I can sort of, even if I don't want to like fully invest myself in a book, but I want to sort of get the gist of it, I do that a lot. Like if a book is popular, I'll just sort of skim it and be able to have the takeaway. And then a final reason it was helpful is that it gave me thick skin, and also like it made me a little bit tough, I would say. Like I can handle a lot of criticism because lawyers have no tact and they'll just straight up tell you you're like an idiot, So the way that the publishing world is very soft to me after that. Everybody's very gentle, and I'm just sort of like, you can give it to me, like I can take it. So I think it gave me a thick skin as well.
That's so funny and interesting. And like, I completely believe it. Even getting through law school, like that is not nothing. To be able to actually finish that and graduate is huge in and of itself. So I can totally see why that would give you a resilience that I think you definitely need moving into publishing. So what's it been like? What's it been like being able to actually, experience the career path you really want?
It's awesome. I feel so blessed and lucky. And it's been great. It's been a good, but also sort of surreal past 5 years, because I published my first book in 2020, like right at the beginning of lockdown. So the beginning of my career was all in a lockdown world. So that was a little bit strange. So it wasn't until my my fourth book. Yeah, it wasn't really until, I had an event for my third book, Exalted. And then for my fourth book, that was sort of, even though it was my fourth book, it in some ways felt like the first, in the sense that like the world was fully opened up. I went on a proper tour. So it's been really interesting. Like I had a whole tour scheduled for my first book that was obviously canceled. So it's been, it's been super, I feel so grateful and lucky, and it's been kind of, surreal.
That's so cool. It is so cool. I read Perfume and Pain last year, and I literally read it in a day. I loved it so much. It was so engaging, and also I thought, as a queer person myself, it was so accurate. Like you just don't often. Only queer writers can write like actually accurate experiences of what it's like. And I just thought it was you just so spot on, like really hit the nail on the head. Yeah. What drew you? Like the book's described as, quote, a hilarious nod to 1950s lesbian pulp. What drew you to that genre, and how did you want to reclaim it or reimagine it?
It's funny because I really honestly... Okay, so when I started reading the book, it had nothing to do with lesbian pulp or perfume. It was just about a woman who had turned 35 and was realizing that her bad behavior was just like deeply uncute at this age, and she sort of wanted to change. Who knows where I got that idea, but that was the crux. And as I started writing it, I had this scene where I knew that Astrid like couldn't come up she was blocked. She couldn't come up with what to write for her writing group, and her eye floats to this lesbian pulp book on her bookshelf, and she decides she's going to plagiarize it. And I think for that moment, I did some research on lesbian pulp just to figure out like what the book would be. And I came across the original Perfume and Pain, which was a book from the 50s. And I just loved the title and the cover. And I just knew that Astrid was going to plagiarize that book, and I was going to plagiarize the title for my own book. And I really honestly don't remember how it popped into my head, but I know that it was Astrid plagiarizing it for that scene, which I then in turn kind of plagiarized some of Perfume and Pulp as well. But I think it's all legal. I should know that because I went to law school, but so far no one sued me, so I think it's fine.
I wonder who has the rights on the original these days.
Well, it's out of print, and I think, titles are not copyrighted. Like you can always steal a title. There's tons of books with the same title, so I knew taking the title was fine. They're definitely, I don't think I really plagiarize anything else. I reference a lot of scenes in the book, and actually, I don't want to give away the end of my book in case, listeners haven't read it, but the final scene of my book is a take on a scene in the original.
I think it's fine. It's like, it's no not pretending it doesn't exist.
Yeah, exactly. I'm not pretending it's like, oh, it's my, I came up with all this. I'm referencing it, so.
Yeah. I even think of I read Demon Copperhead early this year, which is obviously based on David Copperfield. Mm-hmm. So, it's kind of two sides of the same coin, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah. So where did the idea of perfume being such a key part of the novel come from?
So yeah, that was a way later thing. So I knew as soon as I saw that cover, I just fell in love with the cover and I fell in love with the title. And the first couple drafts, it had nothing to do with perfume. I just the title. But then I do have an inadvertent tendency to write my life into existence. So
Yeah.
so by like the yeah, by the third or fourth draft, I'd kind of developed this independent obsession with perfume, like really obsessed. Collecting all these decants and samples and making charts about them and making notes about them and designing my own sort of perfumes in my head as I was falling asleep. And I was like, why I should put that into the book. Like I'm not collecting it for no reason. So all of the perfume stuff that's in the book came later. It was like a third, fourth, fifth draft thing. But I do think it fits with the themes of the book, which is kind of feminine desire and seduction and how identity and how you want to sort of like how women like want to like express their femininity, I suppose.
Yeah, I love perfume as well. Like I just love it. I love how it can transform your character as a person. I feel completely different wearing one versus another, and I love that. And I also love that it can become a memorable thing about you. Like I love the idea that someone can smell something and they think of you, or it evokes a memory. I feel like you should release a limited edition perfume along with a book.
Yeah, we thought
Not too late.
Yeah,
Not too late. Could be fun.
it does feel a little bit too late, but we did think about it. But it also like basically, it's very expensive.
Yeah,
So
true.
that was a consideration, but we did end up teaming up with Marissa Zappis. I don't know if you're familiar with her perfume. She's a New
I
York.
know her name. I know the name.
I think Annabelle's Birthday Cake is one of her more like one of her famous cult favorite scents. But she's really cool. So we did team up with her for the New York Perfume and Pain event, and she like for certain influencer packages where we sent out the book. I'm not sure if you got one of them. They had a sample of one of her perfumes in them, which is called Maggie
Nice.
is Alive, and I think it sort of fits with the Tennessee Williams reference, and I think it sort of fits with some of the themes of the book. So.
That's so cool. You know how these days books always come with like a Spotify playlist link. Imagine if you could do like if it wasn't extremely expensive, a dedicated perfume per book. That would be so cool. Maybe one day.
No, I feel like publishers do need to get more into merch though, because I mean, that's how you make money. I mean, it just seems smart. And I feel like for certain, I know there was a bunch of merch for Sally Rooney's, not
Yeah.
the Mezzo, but the one before that. I remember seeing like hats everywhere.
Yeah.
I feel like that's so smart and just a way for like everybody to make more money. And as a consumer, there's certain books where I would love. I mean, I think Perfume and Pain is a gorgeous title or a gorgeous cover, which I can say because I had nothing to do with it. But I would love to see that on like a beach towel or like a sweatshirt. I would totally wear, and I feel like even if it wasn't my book, I would like wear that. And there are other books I can think of like My Year of Rest and Relaxation. I would totally have like a T-shirt with that cover or a sweatshirt or whatever. So
I
yeah.
agree.
If any
I
like
think
salespeople are listening in publishing, like get on it.
I agree. I feel like big launch events with like specific merch or like goodie bags is such a smart way in. I read a really interesting article, maybe it was a Substack, but I'm pretty sure it was an article about some of these launch parties recently. I even saved it as like a tab on my phone because I was like, that is so cool. And most of the time it's writers bringing it to life on their own, like not with their publisher, right? Because it seems like publishers are not really thinking about that in terms of marketing. But unfortunately, I'm in New Zealand, and all the way down here we don't tend to get all the cool stuff, but I see all the cool stuff that other people get, and I think it's great. And I do think, particularly with books, like people, myself included, become like super fans and really loyal to authors that you like. And when you're that loyal, you want to show off your pride, and merch is the perfect way to do that. Even tote bags, they're not like that expensive to make, and you can just run a print line of like the same kind. Yeah. So I agree. Bring back merch.
What's the literary scene like in New Zealand?
It's actually pretty great. Like, I personally think that New Zealand has some of the best writers in the world. In fact, one of our New Zealand authors has just made the shortlist for the Women's Prize for Fiction globally, which is absolutely incredible.
What authors?
Her name is Saray De Silva, and her book is Amma. I've read it and I cried like a baby, and it's also a beautiful cover. Although I think the international cover is different to the New Zealand cover. But I think our writers are world class, honestly. But people don't tend to hear about us because we're so far away and we don't have the same budgets. Eleanor Catton is another big one. She wrote The Luminaries and Burnham Wood. She's another very famous writer.
I need to read it, but I've heard great things. What about Greta and Valden? Isn't that?
Oh yeah! Oh my God! How did I forget
What's
about
her name?
Rebecca K. Riley?
Yeah, she's great. I really liked Greta and Valden.
It's so funny, and I loved how she portrayed Auckland, which is where I live.
Oh, cool.
It's very accurate. Yeah, big fan. She's amazing. I think she's working on a second book at the moment, actually.
Awesome.
So we do have really fantastic writers. They just don't get as much exposure as I think they deserve. Do you get to do any like writing events or bigger events outside of book tours?
There's a big one in LA, the LA Times Book Festival that I've been I've been on panels the past few years. So I pretty much go every year. And that's huge. I think it's one of the biggest writer festivals in the US, and it brings in writers from all over the US. So that one's really fun. And then there's AWP. I don't know if you've heard of that.
No.
Oh my God, what does it stand for? American Writers something. It's one of the biggest writers conferences also in the US, and they have it every year in a different city. And this year it's in LA, so that's going to be super fun because that's where I live.
Yeah.
And frankly, I've been to it twice. I went in Tampa, Florida, and I went in Washington, D.C., where I'm from. And I think only one time I had actual tickets to the conference itself, because it's more about the offsite events. Like, people do offsite readings and offsite. It's basically just good excuse for a bunch of writers to like hang out, get together, go to bars. So, and then do sort of like these smaller little pop-up readings. So I'm very excited for that.
I love events like this because, first of all, I make friends with people who are there, because I feel like if you've made the effort to go to a writing event already, like there are a bunch of things about a person that you're going to have in common. Like it almost is like a pre-qualifier to whether you should bother talking to someone or not. Like,
yeah, they're your type of people.
Exactly. Like last year at the Writers Festival, I made friends with people as I was standing in the signing lines to like get our book signed by an author. I'm like, okay, you're at a writing festival. You obviously to the same event as me for this author that we both like, and you like them enough to buy their book and stand in the line. So like that's heaps of things in common.
That's awesome.
Yeah. I had like post-festival depression. It's like my Coachella, like my Burning Man. I can just geek out and feel like completely validated in my introverted nerdiness.
Yeah, that's what's kind of fun about writers festivals too, is because writers tend to be, and like readers I think as well, tend to be introverts. So there's something like extra exciting about it, getting all the introverts together. And it's like, for me, it's like, when I'm busy, it just means I'm busy on the computer. But having something like this where it's busy in a way that's out in the world and at events and with people is, I do get stressed, but it's one of those things where once I'm there, I'm like high, it's really fun.
Let's talk about Astrid. Astrid is very chaotic and funny, but also kind of her worst enemy. So how much of her voice was fun to write, and how much of it was difficult to sit with? What was it like bringing Astrid to life?
It was honestly all fun to write. It wasn't difficult, I would say. I think people are surprised when they meet me because they expect me to be more like Astrid, or like more like my characters, like a little bit like more crazy. But I definitely have that voice, that Astrid voice in my head. I'm just, repressing it. So writing is fun because I get to be free and I get to just let it out, and I just get to go ham on it. I mean, sometimes I wasn't really in an angry place when I wrote this book, but historically, like I get very like pissed off just about, dumb things. And I find that anger is a really useful emotion for generating funny words on the page. To me, I like writing this sort of like a funny rant, which I think a lot of Perfume and Pain is. She's just kind of ranting. And so that was really fun. I think like the challenging part was that it's funny because it's the most, I would say it's, Definitely my most successful book, easily, but I was the most insecure while I was writing it because I had just had to shelve a book. I'd gone out with a book that nobody wanted, and I really liked that book, and I was very confident about it. And so when I started Perfume and Pain, I was in this really insecure place of like, nobody's gonna want to publish me again, you know? And it's funny how sometimes the more successful book comes out of that place, but I was not, you know, I was having fun when I was writing it, as I always am, because I do enjoy the drafting process, but I was very insecure. I was like, I don't know if people are going to like this. I don't know if it's good. I probably should just stop writing. So that was the hard part. Yeah.
You're so real for that. There is something brutally honest about Astrid's awareness of her own flaws. Did you want readers to sort of see themselves in that, or sort of just enjoy watching her come to terms with who she was as a person?
I definitely always want readers to, maybe if not see themselves, but see some of themselves in the character, feel connected on some way. In some way, I'm somebody for whom, you know, just being alive and existing has always been a little bit angsty. And so books have really helped me when I'm in dark times to just like see a character that I like having these thoughts that I've had and that I haven't said out loud, that I thought I was a freak for having, or like that I could never actually say this out loud because it would be alienating or nobody else feels this way. I've had so many moments like that with books where I read it and I'm like, oh, okay, maybe this is a universal experience, you know, or maybe it's more common than I thought it was. So I really want to give that. That's very important to me, to give back to readers, because I've gotten so much of that from my favorite books.
That's like exactly how I describe my experience reading like dark fiction or unlikable protagonists. That's why I love it so much as well, as it feels like they're saying things that I am not brave enough to say, or that I want to say and I haven't been able to, and it's like living vicariously through those characters. It's like, what would happen if I did just do whatever I wanted, or say whatever I wanted?
Right. Astrid shows you why you can't. Why it shows
Yes.
why you can't.
Why that's not always a good thing.
Yeah, exactly.
Speaking about that, and Astrid being quite a little bit cancelled, it's quite of the moment. Were you interested in writing about like a redemption arc, or were you more sort of drawn to the idea of self-sabotage?
I think it was more like a way for me to sort of work through a lot of my personal frustrations and anxieties at the time. I wish my answer was more craft, but it's really more personal. Like, I was frustrated with the culture. And I wrote the bulk of this book in 2021, which I think was kind of the height of cancel culture and the height of canceling people for things that I thought often were sort of very minor transgressions. And as a writer and somebody who's always been drawn to very like bold, almost reckless voices, it scared me, this idea that you had to be so careful about what you were saying. I mean, I do think it's good to be somewhat careful. I never want to offend people, and I do think about that when I'm writing. Like, I'm not out here to offend people, but I also want to be able to speak freely and also speak a bit recklessly and be a bit wild. And I think a lot of I know that a lot of the writers and artists and musicians that I've been drawn to throughout my life have been at least minorly canceled at some point. I'm a huge Lana Del Rey fan, who was, I think, canceled at that same year for something that I thought was kind of silly. My next book is kind of a Lana Del Rey fanfic a little bit.
Oh my God, amazing.
I'm not going to actually get into the other artists that I like who have been canceled because I don't want to offend anyone. But yeah, I think it was kind of just my feeling frustrated. And also, I think there's this other thing that's frustrating for me sometimes as a, you know, creative or artist. I hate using those words to describe myself, but I don't know what other words to use. And I understand it, but it's like people want these really messy, unhinged characters from me. But I have to have this really professional separation. I cannot act anything like those characters. And if I do anything close to what they do, it's a huge no-no. So it's a bit frustrating because it's like, okay, you want me to be like this in my work, but I can't be anything like this in my life. And I completely understand why that distinction exists, but it's hard to manage because when you're inhabiting a character it becomes your life. And to keep those two things very separate. Like my characters are often squirrely and bizarre and a little bitchy. But then it's like, if I act like that outside of the writing, it becomes a big problem. And I understand why. I understand why. So I think, and so I'm really acting that out with Astrid. Nothing in my life was ever close to that kind of, drama that she has, but it was more of an internal frustration that I externalized through Astrid's drama.
I had another interview with someone who kind of made a really good point, I guess, that sort of made me think of it as you were speaking around how so much of what we're calling unhinged or unlikable characters is really just women who are just a bit pissed off at the way they're being treated in life, or at feeling frustrated about the work and labor they're forced to do, and us doing something about it, and like that is what makes them unlikable and unhinged, quote unquote, which I think is a really good, like, actually that's quite true. We're just basically labeling all women who are sick of dealing with this bullshit as being unlikable, which is, I mean, we know societally that does technically make an unlikable woman if you don't fit into this perfect box, and if you're not perfectly polite and don't follow our expectations, then which your point around you can't behave like Astrid because that's not deemed societally acceptable, it's very true. So
but I also think it's I think that both, I don't want to behave like Astrid. I know that that's my instinct sometimes, but I think it's better for me and for everyone else if I don't. Emphasis on me in the sense that I don't think that I have anything to gain from acting like Astrid. I really don't. And I don't think Astrid's like been oppressed. I think she's a pretty, she's very privileged. I think she's more like a brat. And I don't think there's, I don't think anybody's wronged her. I think she's just pretty difficult. And that's sort of how I feel as well. Like, I don't feel like I'm being crushed under the weight of the patriarchy. I just feel like I'm a little bit difficult. And I always have been. And I've really been like working on not being like that, because I actually don't want to be like that. And I don't think I have anything to gain from being like that. And I think that's probably a little different from what you're talking about, which is women who have legitimately been oppressed and have, righteous anger that they need to express. I think for me and Astrid, I think the anger is more of an indulgence than, a righteous expression of being wronged. I think it's just it's a vice. I think that's true in at least me and Astrid's case.
I like that. I like that honesty, that she might just be a brat. And maybe that's fine as well.
Yeah, it is what it is. Some people like it.
Yeah. It's interesting. Like it's what makes her such an interesting character, is that she is kind of unlikable, but we do still root for her. That's interesting. It's not an easy thing to pull off, to create a character that is so frustrating and stubborn, but is still someone we kind of deep down root for.
I think every great character should have those exact characteristics that you described. I think should be frustrating, should be, have flaws, and also should be sympathetic. I think if you think of like the people that you love in your life, aren't they all like that? They're flawed. But they're flawed. They're frustrating, but they're also very sympathetic, and they have parts of, I think that's just that's how we feel about, our loved ones. So this whole discourse around the unlikable women, or unlikable characters, I think is kind of interesting because, they're unlikable in some ways, but they're also likable in other ways. And it's also, likability is very subjective. I mean, I legitimately love 99% of the characters that are described as unlikable women. I'm like, I'd rather hang out with them than anybody. They're fun, and they're funny, and I think when it comes to the sympathetic aspects, you do have to balance it. I mean, you can't have a character just be a pure monster and just be screaming at everybody and like punching people, but I think there are little ways that you can. For Astrid, she cares about her friends. I mean, she's a little bit of a bitch to them sometimes, but especially as the book goes on, she cares more about repairing this friendship with Zev and caring for his dog. Same with her relationship with her brother and with her family. I think she starts seeing them with more tenderness as the book goes on, which I think does in turn make her more sympathetic. And I think self-awareness for a character and a human can go a long way. If you get bitched at by your friend, you know, it sucks. If afterwards they're like, you know what, I'm really sorry I bitched at you. I had a horrible day. Like that wasn't cool. My bad. It makes it a lot better. Like it's so easy to forgive them.
Yeah.
So I think that self-awareness does go a long way in terms of, you know, allowing bad behavior from characters and people in our lives.
Yeah, yeah. It's very true. I was very drawn to Astrid's sort of, I guess, awareness and innate desire to like not be like that. I thought
Right,
that
she
was
wants to be
very
better.
real.
Yeah.
Yeah, to do better. There's a lot of people in the world who are just brats and don't care. So it's very interesting to read about somebody who's like, I don't really want to be a huge dick for the rest of my life.
Yeah, yeah. And I think most people can relate to that struggle of like feeling like a bad person and wanting to be a better one. Like who among us has not felt like that at some point?
Yeah. And it does take it takes a lot of courage to admit that
Hmm.
you might be a bit of a dick and to own it. It's not, that's why most people never do it. How much of your writing comes from lived experience versus invention?
It's hard to say. It depends on the writing. It depends on the work. I mean, Perfume and Pain, you know, the character's a novelist. She lives in Los Angeles. She's my age. You know, I've already revealed that a lot of her voice is my voice. So, I mean, the brother character is fully based on my brother, which, you know, accidentally got back to him. So that was, yeah, that was.
Awkward conversation.
Yeah, the best friend, the two best friends, the two like Zev and Otto are both based on my friends. The love interests are kind of conglomerations of a bunch of different people. But my next book has really, on a superficial level, has actually nothing to do with me. It's about two pop stars, and I can't sing so or make music. But emotionally, it feels very me. So it's interesting, you know, sometimes it's more factually like from your life, or just from your life on a very superficial level, like biographically similar, and then sometimes it's very biographically different, but emotionally feels even truer. So I'd say both. Yeah, I mean, I do both, but mostly there's an inspiration in some kind of human being or celebrity. I'm not that. I'm like I shouldn't say this but I'm not that creative.
I don't know. I mean, I think you know, even if Astrid's voice is one that sort of lives in your head, you turned her into a like, fully fledged, developed individual character who you can absolutely see wandering around, living your life. It's pretty creative. I would
Thanks.
argue my
I guess
case.
what I mean is I'm not somebody who's like, you know, like some people just say that their characters aren't based on anyone they know. They all completely come from their head.
I
The
don't know
main
how that.
character isn't them. For me, it's always has some resemblance to something in real life that I've seen or heard.
So where do your ideas for your books come from? Do you have like a notes app where you jot down your ideas and then when you know one is like the one that you're going to flesh out into a novel, like what's your entry point?
I'm not a note taker at all. I think I get the ideas through the writing process itself. When I start writing a novel, I basically start with a spark of an idea. Like I said, for Perfume and Pain, it was just this character who knows she needs to make a lifestyle change. That's all I really had. And I just start going and I just follow it. And, you know, I write a ton. I think I've started to learn that I guess sometimes me just writing is the way other people would take notes. Like it's just, I have to work through it thinking that it might be something, but often it's not. And then often because I write in this way where I really don't go in with much knowledge of what the book's about or what's going to happen, I do have to edit it pretty significantly, and I often have to almost completely rewrite the beginning because when I started it, I just didn't know what it was going to be. And that's almost always the case for me. I write the first draft like incredibly fast, and it's so messy. And then hopefully, probably not even by the end of the draft, do I really know what the book is. It's normally by the third or fourth or fifth revision do I really understand what the book is. And no,
That's
actually,
amazing.
yeah, actually, often I think the meaning of my own works is maybe elusive to me. Like, I think it's often other people who are telling me what they're about or what they mean, critics or, interviewers. I like, they'll ask me these questions and I'm just kind of like, I don't know, it just kind of came out of me. And
I
they'll
like
tell me what it
that.
is. They'll tell me what it means. Yeah.
I think that's a good thing. I think that means you've allowed enough room for the reader to draw their own conclusions. I prefer books that let you infer what you want from them rather than trying to spoon feed you a message, I guess.
Yeah, I don't think people like to feel lectured. And I think also like the way that I write them, which is very quickly, I do that in part. Well, that's just my process. That's just the way I do it naturally. But also, I think there's an added benefit, which is that, the best compliment I get is that people read my books in like one or two sittings. And I do think that the fact that I write the first draft so quickly does infuse the text with like an urgency that I hope gets translated to the reader, because I am writing it very quickly and I'm writing it almost the way I want it to be read, with a sense of urgency and a sense of what the fuck is going to happen next. Because
Yeah.
yeah,
How long does it usually take you to write a first draft?
it depends. Perfume and Pain, it's typically a couple months. Yeah, like a couple months, and then I spend years editing.
Do you ever reach a point where you're like, oh my God, I'm sick of this and I don't want to carry on?
All
Like,
the time, all the time.
how do
All
you push through?
Uh, I had a few of those with Perfume and Pain because I was in that very insecure place that I told you about.
Right.
The American Spirits one, that one was like kind of amazing. That was like the one that's coming out next year about Lana Del Rey. That was like a pure, like, that might have been just 1 month. It was like a hypomanic.
Wow.
It was so cool. Like, hasn't happened since. So I don't know. It was like 2 years ago. But when I get to those points, I think it's really normal for any writer to have moments where you're like, this is so embarrassing, this is horrible, like, this is trash. I think any writer who says that they don't experience that is either lying or extremely lucky. For me, it tends to come at like 20,000 word mark, I've noticed. The beginning of the book is really fun because I'm like, what's going on? I'm trying to get it all down. The end is fun because you're wrapping up all the strings, you're doing the climax. The middle is typically where I'm just like, I don't have anything else to say. I'm over it. Maybe another idea would be better. And I think time is really your friend in those moments, because sometimes that just means you need to set it aside for a second. That's often when I ask other people for feedback, and that if their feedback can kind of propel me. I think one thing that holds back a lot of writers is perfectionism, and I get that tendency. I have it in a lot of areas in my life. Luckily, I don't have it during the drafting, which I think is why I'm able to write so many drafts and write them so fast, because I'm not a perfectionist at all during them. And I try my very best not to worry about whether it's good and bad, whether it's good on a line level. I'm just trying to follow where my energy wants to go and where I think the characters want to go. And I'm trying really hard not to think about anything else. And so that can be very helpful. And often when I get in those stuck periods where I'm not feeling a lot of energy or excitement, I'm just like, treat it like any other job, just write it. Just sit down, write the chapter. You're going to hate it. Like, you're not going to feel excited about it. It's not going to feel good. But maybe in a couple weeks you look back on it and you're like, oh, that actually was not so bad. So I've definitely written many chapters that way, where I just treat it like any other job and I just try not to worry too much and I just put the words down. So there's that too.
I always really enjoy hearing from writers your own experience of like, how do you get through the drafting process? Because I have a few dead drafts that I get to the 20,000 word mark and I'm like, I hate it. It's just never look at it again. So, but I know it's a common
Now
experience.
it's very normal. Yeah, the 20,000 word mark is,
The
but yeah,
murky middle.
yeah, I would try to go back to it. Or you can just think, I'm going to write the middle later. Why don't you just skip to like the climax, or skip to the Dark Night of the Soul, and then
That's a hot tip.
then have somebody else read it, because I think my first drafts tend to be up to 30,000 words shorter than the final draft. So
Right.
they're skeletal, and it's not like I don't have like placeholders like add this scene later. It's just that they're not fully fleshed out. So I think you could do that. Like, skip to the part that you're excited to write, and then have a friend read it that you trust, and they can sort of help you figure out like where you should go in that middle area, what's missing, you know?
So what does a usual writing day look like for you?
It depends on what sort of where I am in a project. I tend to like to have at least one thing I'm drafting and at least one, and by thing I mean book, at least one book I'm drafting and at least one book I'm editing.
Wow.
But where, you know, when I getting the edits, I have less control over. I mean, that just depends on, you know, the production schedule when my editor gets them in. So I try to leave like some flexibility just to have time to edit. I handed in a book to my agent a few months ago, and I don't feel super pressured to get her notes. But the other day I'm like, I need to start writing another book because I'm going to go crazy. So I just started something. I need to have something in the drafting phase, like at all time. It's okay if it doesn't turn into anything, but just in terms of like becoming a better writer and also staying sane, I just have to have a writing project. So anyways, I got really away from your question, which is my day to day. So I like to write in the morning. I'll wake up, I have coffee, I write for like 2 to 4 hours. Then I like to exercise in the middle of the day. The afternoons, I have a lot of trouble generating creative work. So I also am a freelance editor, and that's often when I do my editing work or take calls with clients, take meetings. But then again, if I am really excited by a project, I will write in the afternoons. And then I like writing in the evenings. Often I'll write after dinner for a couple of hours. It depends on like how excited I am about a project. Frankly, I haven't done that in a while, but there was a period where I was writing every night. But the morning for sure. Morning always. Afternoon tends to be more meetings. And then if I'm into a project, write more in the afternoon and write more in the evening.
Have you found, since you've published 4 books now, has any of your passion or thrill of writing, has that changed at all since it's become more like a profession, or do you still love it as much as you did with the first one? If that's the right word, or like, do you still derive as much pleasure from it?
Definitely the right way to put it. It's evolved. It's evolved. Weirdly, like I was kind of telling you, I feel more insecure. I felt less insecure in the beginning, weirdly. And I think that was because I was writing things that weren't going into the marketplace. And I just
No stakes, right?
yeah,
Like,
no stakes, and they weren't being judged, you know. So I felt really confident in the beginning. Now I'm feeling more humbled. And I also am constantly reading. I used to read other people's books and be like, I could do this. And now I read other people's books and I'm like, this is so good. Like, I can't do that. So I felt a bit more insecure. I do have, I don't, I'm hesitant to say I derive less pleasure from it because there are definitely moments where I derive a lot of pleasure from it still, but maybe it happens less frequently. And I do think like I'm sort of trying to work through this personally, but I think a lot of my drive in the beginning did come from feeling like a loser and feeling like I had something to prove and feeling really angry that all these books were being published and mine wasn't one of them. And now that mine is one of them and that I've published a few books, I'm happier, I'm less angry, and I therefore feel a little bit less like urgency and drive. And you know, I know it'll come back. Sometimes I'm like, I just have to have like a big professional upset and then it'll come back. But I hate that that has to be the thing. But maybe it doesn't have to be. I don't know. But I wrote Perfume and Pain after a pretty big professional upset. So often it does come after these professional upsets. So I would love to be able to have a nice writing experience without a professional upset. Actually, American Spirits, the one that's coming out next year, did not come after a professional upset, and it was one of the most enjoyable writing experiences of my life. Then again, people might hate it when it comes out, so I don't know.
I can't wait to read it. Probably the most fascinating takeaway from having carried out so many of these interviews now is understanding or seeing how literally every single person's process is different. Like every single writer has their own thing that works for them. I don't know if you've read the book Daily Rituals, but there's a one called Just Daily Rituals, and then there's Daily Rituals Women at Work by Mason Curry, I think. And essentially all it is like a compilation of like some of the most famous creators and artists throughout history and what they would do every day across mediums. And it's so interesting seeing how people find their creative flow and how different it is. And I think it's such an important thing for us to keep in mind, no matter what kind of creative work you're doing.
Totally. Yeah.
I'm genuinely curious to know from your own personal perspective, when you're on to like draft 30 or whatever of a book, are you still into it? Like, do you still, or is it kind of just getting it done at that point?
It's about mostly the biggest thing for me is having time between edits. So for this, like the best experience for me is to have a lot of time between edits, but you don't always have that luxury. But I sold American Spirits, I think in last spring, almost about a year ago. And then my editor didn't give me edits until the fall. So I had a really long time without looking at it, and that was like perfect. So it's basically about how much time is between the edits. The more time, the easier it is. I wrote a book that this year that came out this year under a pen name, and that one had a really fast production schedule. And when I was panicking doing the copy edit, being like, this is horrible. I'm like, I cannot believe this is going out in the world. So it's almost purely just about like how much time I've had away from it.
Is there any kind of particular ritual or routine you kind of return to when you're working on a project?
Caffeine. I need to have caffeine, but
Me too.
and I have my music. Like I listen to a lot of ambient and classical music. I was actually a writing student who said that she would write a different scented candle for every project. This goes back to the whole scent thing. So that
Oh my God, I love that idea.
yeah, and I like that idea, and I haven't actually done it because I'm kind of chaotic and always lighting a different candle. But I love the idea of having like one candle associated with a certain project, and so that like every time you work on it, you can just light that candle and be brought back into that world. So that's a ritual.
That's such a good idea.
But I haven't actually done it.
That is such a good idea. Thinking about having different projects on the go. I saw Laura Groff speak last year at the Writers' Festival, and she said she often has multiple projects on the go because it removes the pressure from any one project. That's what I thought of when you were saying how you like to have a drafting and an editing book at the same time. Do you find that helps alleviate some of the pressure from any one thing?
Yeah, and I think a little bit. I think it's more about the different parts of the brain. I think the drafting is more right-brained and the editing is more left-brained. And the creative part can kind of be weirdly exhausting. Like, I mean, I'm sure you've had that experience. Like doing technical writing or editing, I have so much more stamina for. I can do it for hours, but creative writing, sometimes I write a scene and for some reason I feel exhausted after. So I like having something in the editing stage because it's kind of like a break almost. It's more technical, it's more left-brained. I have more stamina with it for some reason.
Just thinking back on your previous experience as a lawyer, have you ever been tempted to write anything to do with crime or set in that world?
No. No, it's funny because there are a lot of, lawyers turned writers who write crime fiction like John Grisham and Scott Turow. A lot of those guys are former lawyers. And I think this just like confirms that I never should have been a lawyer because outside of law, outside of it being my job and being in law school, I really don't have much independent interest in the law at all. I don't like follow the Supreme Court. I mean, occasionally I will get really into a celebrity trial. Like I was really into the Amber Heard Johnny Depp trial, and
Oh, yeah.
like I liked Gwyneth Paltrow's skiing
Oh
accident.
my God, that was so funny and weird.
Yeah, like that kind of thing I get into, but that's more about my interest in celebrity than like about the law.
And entertainment almost.
Yeah, and entertainment. So no, but I do really like thrillers, but I don't read legal thrillers. I don't have much. I'm more interested in a marriage where someone's hiding their identity or lying. Maybe it would be good for me. Now I'm like, maybe I should, but I haven't had much independent interest in writing a courtroom drama. And I also frankly didn't spend much time in courtrooms because I was doing appeals. So I didn't do trials. So I would have to do research, I think, to know exactly what that looked like.
What kinds of stories or characters do you think we need or would you like to see more of in fiction right now?
That's a good question. I mean, I don't know. I mean, I would say I'm pretty like happy with the state of fiction. I'm reading good books all the time, but I guess I can just say what I'm drawn to.
It could be anything. It could be like if capitalism didn't exist and we had the freedom to do whatever we wanted and write whatever we wanted, like anything.
I mean, I like books that take place, contemporary fiction that doesn't take place in New York or LA. At least, coming from the US, so much of it takes place in New York I mean, most of it takes place in New York, frankly, Brooklyn. So I like, I'd like to see more like small town America. And maybe, or just places like Palm Springs or New Orleans, or I don't know, places that are a little more different. I guess like I'm interested in characters who are morally ambiguous, and but I think that that does exist, but I think maybe fiction got a bit virtue signally for a while. They really wanted you to know that your character had good politics, and that to me is not a fiction. The purpose of good fiction. I think we want to explore people who maybe are toe the line. So I guess I'm always interested in more of that. Yeah.
Who or what inspires you creatively? And you don't have to tell us, everybody, if you don't want to, but are there any across any kind of creative work?
I'm really into music. Music is sort of my first love, and if I had that talent, I would be doing that hands down. So Lana Del Rey is a big influence on me. Um, Tons of musicians. I can't even list them all. I'm very influenced by my friends also, just probably more so than other writers. Just, they're sort of inside jokes in the way they talk. And I'm pretty influenced by the internet and memes and TikTok. Like I like taking from, the people more so than, Henry James or something.
Yeah, I feel that. I generally feel like social media's been terrible for us as a society, but what I love about it is it's sort of shown us that not one of us have had a unique experience. Like all the weird shit that we do and our like intrusive thoughts, everybody has the same intrusive thoughts. We've all had the same weird experiences, or it's just, I find that hilarious. Like this shared human experience is so interesting to me. Even as it feels like the world is ending, it's like there's still this friendliness about it.
Right. And also, yeah, I recently got onto TikTok. I resisted it for a while. I don't make things, but I just look at it. I didn't look at it before. And I thought it would depress me, but actually I'm kind of just amazed by how creative people are. I'm like,
People are
this
so funny.
kind of uplifting. Yeah, like how many funny creative people there are, just regular people. So I'm very, inspired by that kind of thing.
I agree. I lose hours of my life to TikTok, but only because
Me
it's
too.
so funny. I will be like crying with laughter, and my dog will be like, "What's wrong with you? Why are you crying?" And I'm like, "It's happy tears, I swear." And so you've got a new book coming out. Do you want to plug that real quick?
Sure.
Even though it's coming out next year, go for it.
Yeah, I'm
I want to be
horrible at,
excited.
pitching and doing pithy, catchy explanations of my books, but I'll just try. I mean, I said it was Lana Del Rey fanfic, which it isn't. I mean, I guess they're calling it literary fiction, but to me, it's fanfic. It's called American Spirits, and the character's not totally Lana Del Rey, but she's definitely inspired by her. But there's also another pop star who's sort of trying to replace her, so it has a bit of an all about Eve, almost single white female element. It's a little bit thrillery. Yeah, I would say it's like a comedic thriller about two pop stars, one trying to become the other one.
I can't wait to read it. What's your favorite Lana Del Rey song, out of interest?
Oh, I can't. That's like choosing children. It changes a lot. I mean, right now I'm having a cherry moment, which is on Lust for Life, but I really don't think she's made a bad song. So,
No, she's pretty good.
yeah. What's your favorite?
Or it sounds cliche, but honestly, probably like video games
Video games.
or blue jeans, because they're so evocative to me. Like those songs, when they came out, I was going through such a pivotal time in my life, and like when I hear it, it just takes me back there.
Yeah, no, those are great songs, and I love Born to Die. I think that's still one of her best albums, even though it's like her first. And most of her set lists, I've only seen her once, but I do always look at the set list, and they're always like half Born to Die, because those are a lot of her hits are on that album. Even though she has like 7, 8 albums, like half of the set list is always Born to Die. So
It
big
was
fan
such
of
a
that.
time. That was such a moment.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's music to me is also like scent, where it takes you back.
Yes.
Like it's really
Totally.
evocative.
Hmm.
And her songs were definitely, Born to Die was a massive part of my life at that time.
Yeah, me too. Me too. But it's funny because I see all these people on TikTok being like, I was a teenager when this came out. And I'm like, I was in law school. Like, I don't even
Oh my
have
God.
hormones to like, I can't attribute it to teenage hormones. I was fully like in law school and an adult, I suppose. But it still reached me. It still touched me.
Yeah. Oh my God. I was in journalism school at the time,
Uh,
feeling very lost and extremely depressed, just but not realizing it, and smoking weed every day, like not going to uni and actually just staying home, smoking weed and crocheting and listening to Lana Del Rey.
you know what? That resonates.
That is what I was doing at that time. And when I hear it, that's where I go in my head. And you know what? It was fun. It was a fun time. I wasn't up to much, but it was fun.
Yeah, totally.
Okay, well, thank you so much for your time. It was so great to chat and so many really great takeaways. I'm so excited to read your next book.
I'll get you a copy for sure.
God, I'd love. That would be amazing.